What is going on, Stallions? Welcome to the Gamer Heaven. Today I'm going to be comparing the Sony PlayStation 5 and the Microsoft Xbox Series S. Now, if we were just going off of sheer horsepower, sheer graphical fidelity, this would be a very short video. But I want to go a little bit deeper than that. I want to talk about the entire experience of ownership and go over some of the pros and cons of these two consoles. So if you're in the market for one or both, you know what to expect getting into it. So I'm not texting on the job here, boys. I have a couple of notes so I don't forget anything. So we're going to start off with looks and noise. How much noise is the actual console making in your entertainment center? And cosmetics, which I know is completely subjective. Some people think the PlayStation 5 looks hideous. Some people think the Series S looks like a toy. Me personally, I like the looks of both, but I will say I do think the PlayStation 5 is a better looking console. I'll probably be playing some B-roll here of the unboxing process for both of these consoles here, and I do have to say the PlayStation 5 is really aggressive. It's gaudy, it's in your face, but I do like the flap design. I don't necessarily like the white exterior and black interior, piano black. However, the side panels pop off. It's incredibly easy to paint or hydro dip them or to vinyl wrap them. So if you are somebody that likes to tinker and customize, I like the shape. The stock color pattern isn't fantastic. As for the Series S, I think that basically simplistic yet modern design, not to mention it is by far the smallest current generation console and smaller than even previous generation consoles. It is a tiny, tiny console, which if you have a small entertainment center, that is awesome. Also, it is incredibly quiet. Like literally even under full load, it is super quiet. The PlayStation 5, not so much. There's been a couple times, even with headphones on or out of my surround sound speakers, I have heard it spool up, and I was like, what the fuck is that? I thought maybe it was my refrigerator or something. It's noisy. It is definitely noisy. It's not as loud as a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One from last generation, but as far as the 9th generation consoles, it is louder than a Series X, it is louder than a Series S, and the optical version, which is what I have, is louder than the PlayStation 5 digital version, but they're all pretty loud. All right, next up is the load time. So all of the new generation consoles are rocking SSDs or solid state drives. So compared to previous generation consoles, the load times are substantially shorter. Now we're talking about loading games like Red Dead 2 instead of a minute and a half in about 8 seconds at the most. And you can also cold start these consoles. For example, I did a test launching the Xbox Series S from a cold start, so completely shut down, into a game, and it was around the 10 to 12 second mark, which is awesome. So it's very, very hard to gauge both of these consoles because the Series S and X swap between two open games faster than the PlayStation 5, but the PS5 loads quicker in game. Not by much. It's usually only a 1 to 2 second difference. So they're both extremely quick, but the only component that is stronger, that is faster, that is better inside of the PlayStation 5 in comparison to the Series X is the storage, is that storage drive. It has a faster read and write speed. So because of that, it does load about 1.5 to 2 seconds quicker in most games. However, the Xbox over here has what's called quick resume, so you can have two games basically ready to be hot swapped where it saves where you are in that game. So you can instantly not have to load the game. It's running it in the background, minimized, and you switch over. PlayStation does not have that. They do have what's called a switcher, but what it's actually doing is relaunching the game from start, and you start up at the main menu. It does not do a quick swap or anything like that. Maybe they'll implement that feature in a later patch or update. Probably not for a while because we just got the first major update and that was not one of the features given to us. So it's really hard to compare the two. I'm going to have to make it a draw, just like so far cosmetics or looks. That's an absolute draw because you can't really gauge that. It's subjective. Same thing with the load times. Switching between games faster on the Series S. Loading in-game worlds, like switching maps and stuff like that, a little bit quicker on the PS5, but they're both lightning fast. It's not like one is noticeably quicker than the other. All right, so as for games, this is where both of these consoles approach this completely different. The Xbox is far superior when it comes to having a bigger backwards compatible library, not only larger in quantity, but quality, because a lot of these games, as far back as the Xbox original, Xbox 360, Xbox One, their performance is boosted in not only frame rate, but they're adding HDR, They are adding trophies and a whole bunch of other things to them to where they just look better and run better. Plus, you also have Game Pass, which is a massive library of not only AAA new release titles, but also classic titles like I mentioned. But Xbox launched with absolutely zero console-centric Xbox Series exclusive games. Zero. Which is weird because Halo Infinite is on the box of the Series S and X, but the game wasn't ready, so that's not released. Now, on the other side, Sony has proven recently, I've done a ton of news videos about this, they don't really give a shit about the history of their console, which is super unfortunate. That's just proven by the fact they're closing the PS3, PSP, and PlayStation Vita store, despite the fact there's still developers making Vita games to this day. But I do have PS4 disc games, such as the Uncharted games, Last of Us Remastered, and I am able to pop the disc in there and it will play them. Now, granted, it's just the PS4 version. There is no graphical buffs, no frame rate buffs, or anything like that, but it still plays. And another cool feature, which we'll get to a little bit more when we cover the controller section and accessory section of this video, you can use PS4 controllers to play those PS4 games. So if you've got like a nice paddle controller for your PS4, you can use that. However, whenever you launch a PS5 game, such as Sackboy or Spider-Man Miles Morales, that is a proprietary PlayStation 5 exclusive, it will tell you in the top right of the screen, you must use a DualSense 5 controller, and it just won't control the game. But PlayStation 3 technically launched with 3 PlayStation 5 exclusives that aren't playable on PS4, and that would be Miles Morales, which is kind of more of a DLC game. It's substantially shorter than the original Spider-Man, and it has less content in it, but it's still a really good game, and it takes full advantage of the DualSense 5 controller. Ray tracing at 60 frames per second, which is awesome. To be at a walk 60 with ray tracing and HDR and the features of the controller, definitely a good game. Also, if you have the Pulse 3D headset, which we will talk about more in the accessories section of this video, it sounds insane. It sounds absolutely insane. Sackboy, I actually just started playing this game here recently. I'm not too far into it, but thus far it is super enjoyable and it is great for couch co-op. You can play with one to 4 players, and so far it is an absolute joy to play. Very charming, very family friendly, just a good game overall. Then you also had the Demon's Souls remaster, which doesn't really tickle my fancy. I wasn't a big fan of the original, but hey, I know a lot of people are. And then there's other games like Devil May Cry and Cold War that is available on PlayStation 5, but again, those aren't proprietary PlayStation 5 exclusives. You don't have to own a PS5 to play those. They're available on PC, Xbox, some of them maybe even Switch. Alrighty guys, controllers and accessories, i.e. the peripherals for it. So I will say right off the bat, ergonomically, comfort-wise, I still, even though the DualSense 5 is a tremendous step forward for ergonomics over the DualShock 4 of the PlayStation, it is still more comfortable in a neutral position for me to use the Xbox Series controller. This is just, you literally can't really upgrade perfection when it comes to ergonomics. This is already such a damn good controller for standard North American hands. I'm 5'11", about 175 pounds, pretty average dude overall, if you know what I mean, ladies. But damn, this just feels amazing. Also, there is a better textured grip on the back of this controller. Now, the DualSense 5 controller does have a bunch of little PlayStation face buttons, crosses, squares, triangles, circles on the back, which is a really cool Easter egg, but it doesn't really provide the best stippling or grip on the back. You actually get a better grip on that sucker on the Xbox Series. Now, Microsoft and Sony approach their controllers completely different. Xbox is so similar to the Xbox One controller that they're cross-compatible between generations. I can take this and use it on an Xbox One, or I can take an Xbox One controller, like a lot of my limited editions over there, and use them on the Series because they are virtually the same. The only changes, thank you for asking, they shaved a few millimeters off of the bumpers up there. They also put this ribbed grip on the triggers and bumpers. They added a little bit more grip around the back shell. It's not rubberized or anything. It is plastic, but it's got these little ribs that actually do provide a good amount of grip. They replaced the D-pad with what's called the hybrid. So it's basically a 4-point D-pad, yet it also has a wheel. So for those fighting games where you want to be able to bust out those sweet combos and whatnot, I didn't mean to startle you guys. That is an awesome D-pad. That really is. Then you also have the share button right there in the middle, which, you know, PlayStation has had since the last generation, the PS4. USB-C, which is always a welcome treat. And that's it. But they also retail for the same price as the Xbox One controllers, which is about 60 US dollars. However, you can usually find them around 50 or so. I actually bought 3 of them for $40 on Amazon when they were running a promotion because I customize controllers for gifts for people. I had a small business doing it for a while, and also just for myself. Like, I customize these myself because I don't like to have the same stock controllers that everyone else has. You know what I mean? It's an extension of yourself, your creativity. So now PlayStation, on the other hand, let me get a stock controller real quick. This one's a little too spicy. There we go. So this is a stock DualSense 5 controller. And this thing is a technological marvel. And I don't just say that word lightly, that combination of words. That's a big statement. That is a bold statement there, Cotton. We'll see how it works out for them. So this is pretty insane. There has literally never been a controller like this. What do you mean, Kevin? What does it do? It's just a piece of plastic. Why is it any different than any other controller? Thank you for asking. So, first of all, it has a built-in microphone. So if you don't have a headset or it dies, you can still communicate with your buddies. You can search the interface like Netflix and YouTube with your voice. You can also not only mute the mic, but you can hold it down and mute your console, no matter what you're plugged into. Of course, it still has the PS4 standard stuff, such as a light bar in there, motion sensing, a speaker, touchpad you can draw little rocket ships on. And of course, they added USB-C, as this is the next generation of consoles, and it is ergonomically very, very good. It is a close second to an Xbox One controller. Close, but not as good. But where this actually takes it to the next step, to the future of gaming, to the next gen, if you will, is with haptic feedback and adaptive triggers. Now, until you've actually tried these hands-on, to you, they're probably just gonna sound like a gimmick, and they kind of are, but they work amazing. So, adaptive triggers get stiffer or lighter depending on what you're doing. So you're pulling back a bow, they get really stiff. You're using a gun, you might hit a nice resistance, boom, then a crisp break, and then a click, a little reset, like a real firearm trigger. It's insane. The haptic feedback, you do have vibration in the triggers now, which the PS4 did not. It just had rumble force motors in the palms. You do now have vibration in the triggers, which Xbox has had since the Xbox One and the Series. But you also get these really, really accurate haptic feedback motors in the palms, which create literally an unlimited amount of effect. So if you're stepping on sand, you might hear it crunching in your hand, or you crash a car and it literally jars your hand so much you feel like your wrists are gonna pop. It's impressive. It really is. Now, granted, that only works with PlayStation 5 exclusive games, like for example, Astro's Playroom, which is baked into the PS5 to showcase the features of the new controller. And I do recommend, if you are a PS5 owner, that is one of the first things you do with your new console is play Astro's Playroom. It's installed on the console for a reason. It's awesome. So controllers, I'm gonna have to give it to the DualSense, even though this is ergonomically more comfortable. So if I'm gonna be playing on PC or something, I'm probably gonna plug in an Xbox One controller. This is ergonomically very comfortable as well. And like I said, it is truly next generation. This feels like a slight midlife refresh to the Xbox One controller. And this feels literally futuristic. So DualSense 5 is a better controller. Now, talking about the compatibility cross generations with the accessories and peripherals, like I had mentioned, the PlayStation 5, you can only use PS4 controllers on PS4 games, which since there is only like 3 or 4 PlayStation 5 games, you can use your controller on a lot of those PlayStation 4 games. The Xbox, on the other hand, you can use all of your previous accessories, so your headsets. And Microsoft did just release a proprietary Series S and X headset. I did a review it on this channel. That'll be linked in the description below, as well as the Sony Pulse 3D, which is that headset over there. They both retail for $100, finger guns, $100 from Microsoft and from Sony. And they're both good, but headset-wise, the Pulse 3D is way better because it actually takes advantage of the Tempest 3D audio engine on the PS5. So even though the DualSense 5 controller is better and more next generation, the Xbox makes it a lot easier to use your previous accessories, whether it's headsets, controllers, etc. A lot of PS4 headsets do work on the PlayStation 5. For example, I have the Razer Nari Ultimates I've owned for 3.5 years. And those work no problem just by plugging in the 2.4 gigahertz dongle into the USB port on the console. All right, so next up is going to be screen recording for things like YouTube, and then also streaming to Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Gaming, whatever, directly from the console. So this is rather niche, as I'm sure not everyone that buys one of these consoles is a YouTuber slash streamer, but a lot of you probably are, especially being stuck at home due to the pandemic. So PlayStation, all day. So you can stream directly from the series to Twitch, but it is super limited in what you can do, and you have to install a third-party application, the Twitch app. I did do a tutorial how to stream directly from the Xbox Series, and keep in mind, whenever I point to the Series over here, the Series S and X are identical when it comes to their operating system, the accessories that they can use, basically everything except their in-game performance. That's when the Xbox, spools up and takes advantage of its extra teraflops. But like navigating the main menus, the user interface, the software installed is the same. The only difference is, like I said, the Series X is about 3.5 times more powerful than the Series S. Now over here on the PlayStation 5, it is so much easier and so much more detailed, and you have way more controllability. What do I mean? You can actually stream directly to YouTube Live and Twitch. Not to mention, you can basically virtually green screen your background. It doesn't work great, but the option's there if you want to basically eliminate your background and have you just standing out. You can change the shape of your webcam, a circle, a triangle, whatever. You can actually have your Twitch chat overlaid onto your screen, so instead of having to have your phone next to you to read your chat, it's overlaid on your screen. Connectivity seems better. I didn't really see any major bitrate issues, but it did seem like my stream looked better and ran smoother on the PlayStation. And it's just a lot easier on the PlayStation, as literally all you have to do is hit the share button here, either double tap it, hold it down, whatever you have it set to, and then select broadcast, and you're up and running. Xbox, you have to hit the Xbox home button, open the Twitch app, put all your settings in there, get back to your game. If you need to adjust anything inside of Twitch, you have to go back to the application, do that, get back in your game. As we're here, you can do all that from the broadcast button. It's just super easy. You can start and stop your broadcast from your controller, no switching apps or anything like that. And the controllability, like I said, more webcam options, more audio options. It's better. All right, guys, we have made it to the final section of this video, if you don't include my verdict or my final decision. But the last section, the last comparison here is features. Features. So we're talking about the user interface. We're talking about some of the neat quirks and things you can do here. And this really isn't comparable. Much like the horsepower between the Series S and the PlayStation, this really isn't comparable. The user interface or operating system on board the Xbox Series S and X is 96% identical to the Xbox One. You have a couple of dynamic themes. You can adjust some tiles here and there. You do have game swap, the quick resume, which swaps between two games, and I am taking that into account here. All in all, it feels like an Xbox One, which can be good because there is virtually no learning curve. You hop on it, you feel like you're on your Xbox One. But is that really what you want? That's not what I want from a next generation console that you spend $500 on, or $300 with the Series S, but still, it's a good chunk of change. Do you want to feel like you're playing on the same console you've been on for 7 years? I personally don't. I will take the, 2-3 hours to learn the new operating system and feel happy that there's a new experience. And that's what I got with the PlayStation 5. The operating system, the user interface is completely different. Now, if I were to mention all of the new next-gen features of the PlayStation 5, this video would easily be over 30 minutes, so I'm just going to quickly run over them. Like I mentioned, you can do a lot of cool stuff with the controller, but now you can literally jump into a portion of a game directly from the main menu to where you don't need to load into the game and then go to load game. You can jump into a specific part of a map from the home menu. You can double tap the PlayStation button and instantly look at your trophies. You can get tips or hints about your game if you have a PlayStation Plus subscription in game. So instead of having to pause and pull up a YouTube tutorial or a walkthrough, you can do that from your controller, and it'll be like, oh, you're stuck at this puzzle, and it pops up on screen with the next tip or hint. Literally everything about the PlayStation 5 tip to tits feels like a brand new console. From the way it interacts with your TV, to the console itself, to the piece of plastic in your hands, which is the interface, the medium between you and your actual games. So to me, a controller is super important. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a controller freak. These aren't all my controllers, by the way. These are just some of my favorites. All right, so this verdict is going to be very, very hard to make because both of these consoles do specific things very, very well. And I'm going to break it down like this. I can't tell you guys exactly what console to buy, nor would I want to if I could. But as your internet friend, your confidant, and your YouTuber, I will tell every stallion and stallionette watching this video the pros and cons of this bad boy and how I view the strengths of these consoles. So first of all, there is no better value in gaming right now than an Xbox Series S with one extra controller and Game Pass. You have the two features which I consider the most valuable from the new generation, and that is quicker load times due to the SSD and 120 Hz refresh rate. Yes, your games are upscaled 720 or 1080p to 1440. However, it doesn't look like 720 or 1080, it looks like 1440 with HDR, which looks fucking good. I came from an Xbox One X, which was the flagship of last generation. It was about 15 to 20% more powerful than a PS4 Pro. This looks better than all of those. There are certain shaders in certain games, like certain scenes in Halo, where you're like, this did look better on the Xbox One X, but that was locked at 60 frames per second. At the highest, some games didn't even support that. They were at 30. This is at 120. Which makes a tremendous difference. The gameplay looks fluid and smooth. Plus, especially if you play shooters and racers like I do, you want that quick motion. And the fact that you can switch between games so fast, and to me, that's a bigger generational leap, is quicker load times and a smooth frame rate over sheer graphical fidelity, which it looks good. It doesn't look as good as a Series X or a PlayStation 5, obviously, but it's $200 cheaper, and they're easier to get too. When I see consoles come back in stock for drops, they seem to stay in stock longer and get into the hands of real consumers and real gamers longer than the bots and scripts of scalpers, which is exactly where the PS5 and the Series X go usually. Not just that, if you value previous generation gaming and you want to have one console to play everything all the way back to the original Xbox, the Series S is what you want. Sony has proven that they really don't care about their previous generation consoles. If you want to play the entire PlayStation library, you need the original PlayStation 3, the big glossy brick one, and you need a PS5. The PS5 will play 4 and 5 games, and that PlayStation 3 does have backward compatibility, disc and digital, for the PS1 through 3. Keep in mind they're about to be shutting down the servers for the PS3, so you will not be able to digitally buy any more games, but you can go to GameStop and buy disc-based PS3 games and slide them, or PS2 3 games online, and slide those in, and they will work that way. But to me, it just seems like for backward compatibility and basically a library of past games, the series is a clear winner. Now on the blue side of the house, I have to say graphically, I have played the Xbox Series X, 2 of my friends have it, and I have extensive time playing the Series X, so I have seen the flagship on my buddy's 75-inch 4K TV. And I have to say, they look virtually indistinguishable. Even though the PS5 is less powerful than the Series X, I never looked back and was like, that looks a lot better than my PS5. They look pretty much the same. You're going to get 120 frames per second in some titles. Right now, most titles, even for the Series X and the PlayStation 5, are 60 frames per second. For example, I've been playing, Astro's Playroom, Spider-Man Miles Morales. Those are all HDR, ray tracing, 60 frames per second capped, which looks good. Looks great, actually. How do I want to word this? Now, if you have a powerful gaming PC, I can't really justify buying a Xbox Series S or X because depending on your rig, it's going to look better and play better on your PC. You can always plug in a controller to the front of your tower or wirelessly use a controller to your PC, no problem. And you'll have access to not only the Game Pass library and like all Xbox games, as they're not Xbox exclusives, they're Microsoft exclusives, but then you have access to the Steam library and a bunch of other PC exclusives and stuff like that, like Escape from Tarkov. And at that point, I would say, to me, it makes the most sense to get a PlayStation 5 or the new Switch Pro when that comes out, and a PC. If you don't have a PC, as you cannot build a PC for $300 that performs like the Series S, or a PC for $500 that performs like either of the flagships, the PlayStation 5 or the Series X, then I would say you definitely want to look at one of these consoles. So for me personally, as somebody that has a very powerful gaming PC with a 3080 in it, or even before I got my 3080, I had a 2060 Super, which is still very comparable. If it wasn't for this YouTube channel, wouldn't have got an Xbox Series S, even though it is a phenomenal, wonderful, awesome value and a great console, period. But because I already had that gaming PC and can play all those Xbox games over there, controller or keyboard and mouse, And PlayStation has all of those exclusives that are going to be coming out, like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, Gran Turismo, which I know was delayed, but the new Gran Turismo game, if they drop a new God of War, they have Spider-Man, they're remaking Final Fantasy VII again for the PlayStation 5. It just seems like there's more console games to play on the PlayStation 5 when it comes to games that can only be played on that platform, on the PlayStation 5. Which I know games will be coming out like Halo Infinite and maybe even a new Gears of War game, stuff like that. But those are all going to be on Game Pass on the PC as well. So there is no like real console exclusives. Also, that controller is a big selling factor because it is integrated with all those exclusive games that I mentioned, and it is a game changer. If you've tested one, you know what I mean. It's pretty impressive. So for me personally, if it wasn't for the YouTube channel wanting to be able to create content around the Series S, not to mention, like I said, it uses the same accessories, has the same operating system of the Series X, so I can do a lot of those same videos I would do with the Series X with its little brother, the S over here, and I couldn't justify me spending $1,100 after tax on both of the flagship consoles. Now, while it would be easy for me just to stand here and say for you to get a Series X or S and a PlayStation 5, that is pretty expensive. You know, if you get the digital-only version of the PS5, which I kind of advise against, I think the extra $100 is worth it because you can play your disc-based PS4 games, PS5 games, and also your Blu-ray movies. Now, the Series X does, of course, have a Ultra Blu-ray player as well. Series S is discless, much like the $400 discless PlayStation 5 version. And that's up to you, whether you like to go digital only and you don't have a Blu-ray movie collection and stuff like that. So I guess I'd have to say here, if you do have a gaming PC, I would get the PlayStation 5. And if you do not have a gaming PC, a good gaming PC, I don't mean like an old family Dell from the late 90s. I mean like a good comparable gaming PC, then I can't really justify picking up an Xbox Series over the PlayStation. But if you don't have a gaming PC and you really don't care about any of the PlayStation exclusives because you don't enjoy them, then I would say a Series X or S is definitely what you want to look at. Series S if you're on a budget, or even if you're not, if you don't need a disc player and you don't really care about having the top of the line graphical fidelity, but you still want the quick loading times and the high frame rate, the Series S is a solid buy. Now, while I can't just give you guys a direct upfront verdict, hey, you should buy the PlayStation 5, or this thing's overpriced as hell, get a Series S. What I can tell you is my personal experience. For me personally, the Series S has remained idle for quite some time. I barely turn it on, which is unfortunate, but I have a gaming PC and the PlayStation 5. So if I want to play those PlayStation 5 exclusive games that are only available on that platform, not to mention, like I said, the controller is pretty damn good. Then I do that, and the same games that I play on the series are available with Game Pass Ultimate on the PC, which is cool though if you do own both, because they are cross-compatible to where you can save your game on your PC, come to the living room or bedroom where you have your console, pick up your game there, all your trophies and save games are synced up, which is really cool. So at the end of the day, they are both awesome consoles. I don't regret getting either of them, but I will say personally for me, I haven't played the Series S much at all. I've actually put more hours into the PS5, and I've owned this for 4.5 months, and I've owned the PlayStation 5 for about a month and a half. Now, that is just due to the games and due to that next generation experience. The fact that everything feels so new and fresh and original and unexperienced from the last 7 years that we've had on the previous generation, the 8th gen consoles. By the way, when I say the 8th and 9th generation consoles, I don't want to confuse you guys, but to like inform or educate you guys when I say that, I am talking about the entire console generation. So everything from the NES to the SNES and Sega Genesis era to the N64 and Sega Dreamcast era, like including all home consoles. So they're both awesome consoles. I don't regret either one of them. I think they're both awesome. By the way, I gotta say, they look awesome. Like just having them in the entertainment center like that with like a little Xbox area, a little Nintendo area in the middle. I plan to get the Switch Pro, Switch 2, Super Switch, whatever they call it. I'm putting that right there in the old Nintendo Center, maybe like a little red Nintendo sign in the middle or whatever. But I love them both. I really do. But I have to say, if I did not have a gaming PC, I would be getting more use out of my Xbox Series. But since my PC is more powerful than a Series X, then having the Series S, you know, at this point, it's here for YouTube content, which is not a bad thing. I mean, I don't mind playing on it, and if I know there's a lot of people that are interested in the Series S and ask me daily questions about it, and you know, I love answering those, and I love telling you guys the truth. It's a awesome console. It's a great budget buy. It's super powerful for what it is. So that is going to do it, guys. I did share my full experience of ownership. I mean, I probably went more in depth. This is probably going to be a longer video than I wanted, but I wanted to share everything that I've learned about these consoles and ownership and just playing with them A lot. If you have any specific questions, drop them in the comment section below. That is for you Stallions and Stallionettes to get a forum going, a conversation. I do jump in there all the time. I check my comments daily. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more people, so this information will reach and help them make a decision as well, which in turn does help me to grow this little channel, which I do greatly appreciate. Subscribe for more content like this. I cover a lot of news in the gaming community and industry, as well as tutorials helping you get set up streaming and YouTubing, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.